Thanks so much for joining us, Elliot.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
If we jump straight into it, I guess why did Elliot decide to go on MAFS?
I never intended to go on a show like this. I never applied. It was never even in my paradigm. I was approached by a talent scout on Instagram. Messaged me and said, "Hey, we want you to audition for the most popular TV show in the country." And I always thought it was The Block, and I was like, "Oh, you beauty! That's my thing." I work in home renovations, and so I applied. Found out it wasn't it on a just a Skype interview, and I've just found the kind of concept of it really interesting. They delved a lot into my psychology and asking me a lot of questions like that. And I thought that was I'm kind of interested in human behavior and things like that. So I kind of just went, well, I'll just at least see what they think of me. I'll go through the process without any real, without meaning to go through with it. And then, they just came forward and they're like, well, we actually want to offer you, a spot on the show. I eventually just went, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm probably not going to meet the person there, but it could be a really interesting experience. And it was that what if? And so I kind of went in with this idea of, well, you know what? I got nothing to lose. If I just go in and I meet her and she's not the one, and I pack my bags and go. I'm like, and that was my, if you see the process going into it, that was my whole mindset. I was like, oh, dude, I'll just leave if it's not the right person for me. I don't want to be part of this experiment. I don't want to be here to try to entertain people. Or I went and watched a couple of episodes. And I was like, these people just fight all the time. I was like, I have no interest of doing that. But if it's the person of my dreams, then I could meet her, and then who knows?
It's interesting with your first time around, you were obviously a villain alongside Tim.
Really?
I hate to break it to you, but it was interesting because a lot of people said they were comparing you and Tim, and they said, well, at least with Elliot, he said, if I didn't like the girl, I would leave. Whereas Tim said, I don't have a type, and then he kind of changed his mind. So there's a difference there.
It's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, right?
True. But then I guess the other question is, obviously MAFS isn't a box checking exercise. John loves to say that.
I learned that, obviously, along the way.
So a lot of people would say online, why did he go on the show if he had such a specific type?
Okay, my rebuttal to that would be, why doesn't it have to be? Why can't I do MAFS the way I wanted to do it?
Okay.
Why do I have to do it the way they say to do it? I'm free to do whatever I want. I can come and I can go. And I'll actually point out, my journey ended up being more interesting and, because I was like, look, I'm just going to do what I want to do, not what people say, oh, that's what you should do, or this is what it's about. And also, I came into it and I kind of realized, I was like, oh, this isn't really, the way I thought it would play out.
Do you think producers would have lent into you being on the fence and you might leave as kind of a storyline for them?
Yeah. Well, the term that I hear so much now is non-negotiables. And it's something I never used until I was in the audition process, and that's what they classify it as. They say, Elliot, what's your non-negotiables? What are the things you're not willing to compromise on? And then I kind of took that and ran with it, and then they made that my whole personality was Elliot and his non-negotiables. But it's not I rocked up to the show and I was like, these are my non-negotiables. I kind of rocked up, one foot out the door, but it wasn't about necessarily about ticking boxes or anything. But the way I looked at it, kind of how you brought up Tim, I saw it look, if they're going to match me, I'm going to give them as much information as I can for them to get a suitable match. And that way, at least I can say, well, I told you, this wouldn't work out or whatever. And then I wouldn't be the Tim going, I don't have a type, but it has to be a petite blonde or whatever, I could say, well, look, I said I really wanted to have a bigger family. That's something that's important to me. why do you match with this person? It doesn't really align with that.
Do you think that you and Lauren were kind of stitched up by being matched together?
Oh, her 100%.
Okay.
No, I felt awful. Like the part that they don't show is I was like really apologetic when I left. I said to her, I was like, look, I feel like I'm in a horrible position here. I have to either go back on the thing that I said I would do, or I have to, walk out on you. Like it sucks, and I don't want this to be about like I'm better than you or anything like that. It was more just like we didn't click. It was very, very obvious early on. Like, not even anything about box ticking. Just the chemistry was like way off. Like it was like very awkward. A lot of silence. It just felt trying to be on camera with someone that's like. Not really, they give you really like pointy answers, and you kind of like, it's really uncomfortable. Like you feel like, oh my God, like where do we go from here? Where you don't have any kind of banter, you can't like have a laugh about things. It's really tough.
Okay. So you think if you lasted to the first commitment ceremony, you probably would have left then?
No doubt in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of me, like I'm a bit of a, like stubborn person. It's like part of it was like, well, if they want to put me in this situation, then why should I play their game? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's mean of them on Lauren for them to do this. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way I felt. And I see that in a few couples. Like again, like bring up Tim and Katie. Like, and I don't know the specifics of. His audition process. Maybe he wasn't very forthcoming with what he was after. So it's hard to say, but like that sucks. Watching Katie there get torn apart on TV is like, that's awful. Like, and then it's funny because they don't show any, like Tim, and I don't know Tim very well. I don't really know what happened. I wasn't even there when it happened, but like he could have been showing remorse about being like, oh shit, I said this and I shouldn't have, that was so dumb. But they will not show that at all. Like they people always say like, oh, it's edited, but you still said it. And it's like, yeah, but there's a huge amount of latitude for modifying the message in what what you show and what you don't show. Yeah. I did a TikTok recently to show that with me and John at a sitting down for our one-on-one chat, and it shows like how much you can manipulate that scene to have someone, say something that they don't mean, or
Well, with the Lauren relationship, before we get into your comeback, I guess, how accurate would you say that storyline was compared to what it was like in real life? Obviously, we don't see everything, but...
Look, when I left, the funny thing was, like, in the beginning, it was more of a mutual thing. And this was one thing that really frustrated me that I didn't show, is like, we sat down at dinner and we actually said to each other, like, oh, this. And there was no, like, malice or anything. Like, it was kind of like, oh, that's really weird. Like, we kind of... for example, like she said to me, like, I want a guy that makes like, I think it was like $500,000 a year. And like, I'm not making $500,000 a year. Like, I'm not doing poorly, but like, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like that's, not me. That's not something that like, I'm like, value that much. And there were things, for example, like we're talking about kids, and that was a whole big thing. I made that the biggest reason, or the biggest kind of non-negotiable, to use their words. And that really didn't line up. Like she kind of, the first way she explained it was like, I don't even know if I want to have kids, but if I did, I would have one and not a single one more. And I was kind of like, that's not really the energy that I'm looking. I want someone that's like, yeah, I really want to have a family. Like that's important to me. That's a priority to me. And that kind of message got lost there, definitely. In terms of what else, there's a lot. Like I don't want to go and bring up the nitty gritty, but there's so much dialogue that's from another day that's been posted before, and I'm not even saying it to her, but they've got it me packing my bags in another room, and they just put the audio over the top, like as if I'm saying it to her when I'm not. And it's, it paints a very different picture. Like if two people are kind of like agree they're not a good match, and then you say, well, listen, I don't really want to stick around just to do this, drama, where everyone, you're arguing all every day and it's yelling at each other. Like, I don't really want to do that. And you walk out, it looks very different to just someone being like, you're too old, bye, and walking out. Like you'd have a very different opinion of that person.
Okay. So you pack up, you leave, you go home.
Yep.
How do the producers convince you to come back?
Look, it's funny because Lauren came forward, she's like, they begged me to come back, and like, I wouldn't say they begged me. They called me, and like after the aftermath of doing the one-on-one with John, which was, I was very unhappy with how that was edited. It just, they cut out anything of substance that I said and just had me kind of like bobbling my head. Like after that, and I could kind of see the way, he's got his earpiece in, he's just doing what they say. And like, I could kind of see, geez, I'm kind of very exposed here. Like they could do whatever they want to me. I was a little bit like, ugh. And then, I got a call from the head producer, and she said, listen, we have another match for you. What would you think about coming back? And obviously I was like, oh, fuck, again, like really, like I can't make that mistake twice. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's a chance for me to engage with the experiment in a bit of a different way. And that's the way I saw it. I didn't come back being like, I'm a new man, I'm changed or whatever. It was more like, look, maybe I tried, I was looking at the experiment in the wrong way. Maybe I should treat it a bit more like an experiment. Yeah. And, maybe that'll give me an opportunity to kind of show who I actually am, rather than them just cutting out the bits that they want, for a villain. Yeah.